Well, welcome everybody to the library and to the Icebox Radio Theater. So thank you so much for coming out. I just have one question. Do you all know what legacy is?
Yes.
That means legacy means way back, way back.
You're right, buddy. It does
Way
mean
back.
that. It also means that this performance is brought to you through legacy money.
Well, it means different things to different people. This does.
So just so you're aware of that the people of Minnesota decided that cultural events about Minnesota were important enough to support, and so that money goes to help fund things like this and bring them to you. So what they ask in lieu of offering this free is that you just fill out this really, really brief feedback form, so they just have an idea that people like the programming and they'll keep doing it. So I'll put these on the counter, you'll see them as you go out, I'll put pencils out, and there'll be this brown basket somewhere over there that you can put them in when you're done. So, thanks again for coming, everybody. I'm just happy to see you. So, take it away, Icebox Radio Theater.
Well, thank you so much, Patsy. We, of course, are the Icebox Radio Theater from down International Falls, and you will hopefully be honored somewhat to know that you are our final stop on our first ever library tour. And you'll also be happy to know, clearly, this is the most attractive, best audience that we have featured our wares before over the last 2 weeks. Yes, absolutely. Give yourselves a hand. It's beautiful in Grand Marais. It was wonderful coming up the North Shore today. Let's see, we got the legacy announcement out of the way. We should introduce ourselves, because as I say, this is our last show. 17 shows in 8 days. I'm never doing this again. I'm Jeffrey Adams. Yeah, the legacy. That's the legacy. The legacy. All the therapy. I am Jeffrey Adams, and I'm from International Falls, Minnesota. We should probably start. Just go left or right. Who are you?
My name's Dave Irwin. I'm the alien of the group. I come from Canada, Fort Francis, Ontario, just across the river from International Falls.
I'm Marianne Ostgaard. I am actually from Crookston, Minnesota.
I'm Serena Ostgaard. I'm from Crookston, too.
We're sisters.
No, I never would have guessed that.
You don't want to be your sister now, and now's the moment.
I'm Cody Boyer. I am from International Falls.
Okay, introductions out of the way. Why are we here? Well, I'll tell you why we're here. Because we have brought with us something quite remarkable from the borderland. We have brought with us an actual functioning time machine. That's right, a fast-forward rapid retreat, don't go too far into the past or you will get eaten by a velociraptor time machine. And before we leave today, everybody here is going to know how to operate it. Hopefully this will work, and the time machine is called, of course, radio. See, radio is kind of like a book, a time machine in which you can travel forwards or backwards through time, and all you need is imagination and a love of stories. Do you folks love stories? Yes, absolutely. But the kids come to story time here every week, and that's great, because our time machine runs on imagination, your imagination. Here, let us explain.
See, there was a time, way back when,
Great-grandma's day.
when stories were everything. Imagine the year is 1935, and in less than 20 years, people had gone from telling stories around the fireplace to having them beamed to their homes through a miracle that had just been invented. The miracle called radio.
Remember, this is before the internet, before cell phones, even before television. If you mentioned the letters MP3, folks wouldn't have any idea what you were talking about. If you showed them a DVD or a compact disc, they'd probably think it was a secret project for the Army. People were just getting used to the idea that a voice from thousands of miles away could speak to you right in your own living room.
It was new. It was exciting.
And people listened all the time, to everything. Music, news, sports, weather.
But the thing they listened to the most, the thing they really loved,
Were the stories.
Well, here we are back in Allen's Alley, Portland. I guess the senator's home all right. His bullwhip is coiled up on the front step there.
Somebody, I say, somebody now.
is later than you think.
Johnson Wax Program with Fibber McGee and Molly.
Gangbusters.
Return with us now to those thrilling days of yesteryear. From out of the past come the thundering hoofbeats of the great horse Silver. The Lone Ranger rides again. On Silver! Let's go, big fellow! Hail Silver! Hi!
The Green Hornet. He hunts the biggest of all game, public enemies that even the G-men cannot reach.
Who knows what evil lurks in the hearts of men? The Shadow knows.
Palmolive soap, your beauty hope, and Luster Cream shampoo for soft, glamorous dream girl hair bring you Our Miss Brooks, starring Eve Arden.
Lipton Tea and Lipton Soup presents Inner Sanctum Mystery, starring Wendy Berry.
Now, Autolite and its 60,000 dealers and service stations present Suspense.
And that's, of course, the screaming Agnes Moorehead from the old Bewitched TV show, and also the most popular actress on Suspense, making over 100 appearances. Well, that was old-time radio, and it all started 90 years ago. The year was 1921, and the place was Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. There was a radio station called KDKA, one of the nation's first, that invited two professors from a local agricultural college to come on and give a talk. Now, the station managers probably figured that these professors would just lecture, but they had other ideas. Well, professors, are you ready to give your talk?
Why, sure, but we had an idea.
We had this here playlet written so to keep people entertained while we tells them about a rural land education.
Brilliant! What's it called?
A rural land education.
Brilliant! Plays on the radio, the next big thing. Tell me, what do you need?
Just a telephone bell. In our story, we pretend to talk over the telephone, so we thought we'd start by ringing a bell.
No, we can't do that.
Why not?
Well, if the folks at home heard the telephone bell on their radios, they'd think their own phones were ringing, and we wouldn't want to perpetrate a fraud.
True story. But the professors got their bell. And the radio play was born, complete with sound effects.
After that first play in 1921, radio grew in popularity. It was the Roaring 20s, and everything was good. But as the 20s turned into the 30s, depression gripped the land. There were no jobs, and many families, especially farm families, lost their homes.
But for those families lucky enough to have a home, money was scarce. Movie tickets, magazines, books, all cost money. But if there was a radio in the living room, there was free entertainment all day.
Wait a minute. Didn't radios cost money?
Well, sure, but you could spread the cost of a radio over months and months through a wonderful process called credit. In fact, for many families, a radio was the very first thing ever bought on credit.
And you think that's a good thing?
I don't think we should judge too harshly. We have Netflix queues, online blogs, 700 channels.
Public libraries that lend us magazines and movies as well as books.
And a lot of it delivered right to our phones instantly.
Whereas those folks back in 1935, they only had radio.
Now you have to remember for a moment, in a radio play, the audience never sees anything. The sound effects artists and actors were usually in a studio hundreds of miles away reading from scripts. A radio play that sounded like this on the radio.
Boys, let's hit out!
If you could see it being performed, would look something like this.
Boys, let's hit out! on, men. We're gaining on them.
They've seen us, Tom?
Right, fellas. They probably have fresh horses at the creek.
That's right. Radio plays were just sounds sent over the air, so it was hard to keep people's attention.
They not only had to tell gripping stories, but they had to add just the right amount of sound effects to make it all seem real. But that was the great thing about radio. No matter how far out the story was, it could all seem real with the right sound effect.
If you wanted Superman to fly, you needed a wind machine made out of a barrel and an old window shade.
If you had a Wild West story complete with gunfight, you needed a slapstick, more reliable than a gun shooting blanks. Yes, a good sound effects artist could do just about anything. A creaky door,
With a device called a creek box, a roaring fire,
Just a piece of cellophane plastic.
Or, what about this? A victim of a curse that causes the human body to be turned inside out.
What?
He can't do that, can he?
Just listen to this. No! Don't! I don't want to be turned inside out! No! See? Easy. Just turn a rubber glove inside out. And in case you were wondering, that very sound effect was used on an episode of a show called Lights Out on December 29th, 1937.
Yes, this was radio, in all its gross glory.
And the artists that created it got pretty good at it after a while.
but that still meant that working backstage could be intense.
Well, I think we've warmed up our time machine, so it's time now to activate it. Come back with us now, using your imaginations, to a radio studio, probably somewhere in New York or Hollywood.
It's still 1935, and the cast and crew are ready. Well, mostly ready to go live on the air.
Okay, everyone, 2 minutes to air. 2 minutes.
Oh, Mr. Johnson?
Yes, what is it, Gus?
What sounds more like a broken arm to you, celery or carrots?
Gus, we've been over this 100 times. It's carrots for arms, celery for legs and ankles, and just the cellophane plastic for a broken neck. But it's got to be fresh.
What, the cellophane?
No, the celery.
Help!
What is it? What's wrong?
I'm out of blush and I'm playing a gypsy.
What?
If I'm going to get into this part, Mr. Johnson, I need to set the proper mood.
And for that, you need makeup.
Yes.
On your face.
Of course.
For the audience, which will not see you, because it's radio.
Well, I never!
Come along, dear. He just doesn't understand.
I've never seen such unprofessionalism.
I know.
60 seconds to air, ladies. You got your scripts, don't you?
I'm sure they're around here somewhere.
Oh, Mr. Johnson, one more thing. We forgot the telephone bell. Can we use this?
That's a doorbell.
It is?
Found it!
Your script?
No, my makeup.
This is it. We're going live.
How do I look?
Perfect.
Thank you, dear.
No, thank you.
5 seconds.
Now, where was my script?
4, 3, too many stories to tell about old-time radio. It was a magical time when you could shrink to the size of a pen and leap over tall buildings in a single bound, just with the power of your imagination.
Of course, some people thought it was kind of silly.
After all, spaceships, masked men riding the range.
Secret decoder rings, superheroes with the power to cloud men's minds.
I guess, looking back, it was kind of silly.
After all, radio was just a plaything, a child's toy. Nobody really took it seriously.
Sure they didn't. Until one night when everything changed.
I can see some folks in the audience already know the story. But for those of you that don't, this is a true story. Now, the year was 1938, and the date was October 30th. That's the night before Halloween. There was a radio show called the Mercury Theater of the Air, produced by a man named Orson Welles.
Welles went on to become a famous movie director, but in 1938 he was in New York, working both in stage plays on Broadway and in radio.
He produced the Mercury Theater, but did a lot of other radio programs as well, sometimes as many as 4 to 5 a week. There's a story that he used to ride around New York in an ambulance with sirens blaring just to get from studio to studio quicker.
Orson Welles thought a lot of radio stories were boring, and was always looking for new and original ways to keep the audience interested. As Halloween approached, he got the idea to adapt the novel War of the Worlds by H.G. Wells in a way that would scare people out of their wits. In those days, the news was full of talk of war from faraway Europe, and many wondered if America would soon join the fight.
So, Wells' idea was to tell War of the Worlds, which is a story about Martians invading Earth, as if it were a series of news broadcasts.
We're talking fake news broadcasts about an invasion in a time when people were already worried about war.
Now, of course, they started the broadcast out by telling people it was all just a story. But not everyone was listening at that point. And the reason they weren't listening was because of a man made of wood.
And you sleeping on a cold bench in the park. Oh, I say, what's all this talk about bearskin rugs? Oh, well, haven't you heard, Ray? Why, they want Charlie to be a photographer's model.
On this night, the most popular program on the radio was the Chase and Sanborn Hour with Charlie McCarthy.
It was a comedy variety show starring a man named Edgar Bergen. He was a ventriloquist, kind of like Jeff Dunham, only he wasn't nearly as good as Jeff Dunham.
You could totally see his lips move and everything. But on radio, it didn't matter. So his show was a huge hit.
On this particular night, at 8 o'clock, everyone was listening to Charlie McCarthy and Edgar Bergen tell jokes. It was one of the most popular shows on the radio. So when we say everyone was listening, we really mean everyone.
But after a few minutes, the Charlie McCarthy show switched from jokes that everyone liked to a singer that wasn't very popular.
So, what do you think the audience did? They did the same thing we do today. They began channel surfing.
Sakes, Fred, can't you leave that dial alone?
I'll turn it back to Charlie in a minute. I want to see what else is on.
But I like that singer.
Well, I don't.
Heavens, I don't even know it's on CBS. Everyone we know listens to Charlie McCarthy. Oh, turn it back.
What?
No, turn it back. I will know what everyone's talking about tomorrow.
New Jersey, 22 miles
Hush a second, something's happened.
The flash in the...
Oh, is it the war in Europe?
No, it's New Jersey, they said.
New Jersey, what?
We have received a request from the state militia of Trenton to place at their disposal our entire broadcasting facilities. In view of the gravity of the situation, and believing that radio has a responsibility to serve in the public interest at all times, we are turning over our facilities to the state militia at Trenton.
We take you now to the field headquarters of the state militia near Grover's Mill, New Jersey.
This is Captain Lansing of the Signal Corps, attached to the state militia, now engaged in military operations in the vicinity of Grover's Mill.
Fred, what is it?
I don't know.
Is anyone else saying anything?
Not a word, the idiots.
I don't understand. Why would only one station be talking about this if we were under attack?
I don't know.
Go back to Charlie McCarthy.
What? Are you crazy?
Well, just, I don't...
No, it's nothing but a shadow. Now the troops are on the edge of the Wilmot Farm. 7,000 armed men closing in on an old metal tube. A tub, rather. Well, wait, that wasn't a shadow. It's something moving. Actually rearing up on a sort of metal framework. Now it's reaching above the trees and the searchlights are on it. Hold on.
Ladies and gentlemen, I have a grave announcement to make. Incredible as it may seem, both the observations of science and the evidence of our eyes lead to the inescapable assumption that those strange beings who landed in the Jersey farmlands tonight are the vanguard of an invading army from the planet Mars. The battle which took place tonight at Grover Mills has ended in one of the most shocking defeats ever suffered by an army in modern times.
Should I get the car out?
7,000
go where?
I don't know. We just need to go.
You're scaring me.
Get your coat.
Fred!
Get your coat. Didn't you hear? The Martians are invading. The radio told us so.
That night, phone lines at radio stations all over the country and the network in New York were flooded with calls from terrified listeners.
There were reports of panicked people running in the streets. Churches and police stations were said to be overrun by people trying to get away from the Martians.
It was called the Panic Broadcast, and it went down as one of the biggest moments in radio history.
But in the end, nobody actually got hurt, and Orson Welles didn't even get into that much trouble. As a matter of fact, the Mercury Theater got a brand new sponsor out of the deal, Campbell's Soup.
After the Panic Broadcast, people took radio a little bit more seriously. They understood that with imagination,
Your imagination.
anything was possible, even Mars invading New Jersey.
Okay, I think it's time we fire up that time machine once again.
We would now like to present to you a story. Imagine you're back in 1935.
In the studio are professionals, people who make their living telling stories live on the air.
It's about 4 in the afternoon, and all the kids are getting home from school, and many are rushing to turn on their radios and tune in to the latest episode of their favorite adventure story, Sergeant Luxo of the Yukon.
Back in the studio, sound effects artists get their props ready, actors chat about this and that while checking their scripts one last time, and the director keeps an eye on the control room for the signal they are live on the network. All right, everybody, 30 seconds to air.
Good luck. Thanks.
Settle in, everyone. We're clear to go on the chimes.
This is the National Broadcasting Company.
From the Great White North comes Adventure! It's time once again for the adventures of Sergeant Luxo, brought to you by the makers of Browno brand chocolate beverage, preferred 2-to-1 by justice-loving people everywhere. Sergeant Luxo, outpost commander of the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, who, along with his faithful dog Prince, bring law and justice to the godless Canadian frontier.
On, Prince! Now mush! Mush for crown and country!
We begin our story just outside the walls of famed Fort Mackenzie on the edge of the Yukon wilderness. It's a beautiful sunny day, but Sergeant Luxo, along with his ward Jimmy, are preparing a dog sled in anticipation of the coming winter.
Golly, Sergeant Luxo, I had no idea sergeants in the Royal Canadian Mounted Police had to be so handy with the hammer.
Well, Jimmy, this far out on the frontier, a man has to be handy with everything. A hammer and a gun. And we'll have a hard time getting these vaccines and other vital supplies to remote villages this winter if we can't get this sled fixed. Right, Prince?
Do you think I could be a Mountie someday, Sergeant Luxo?
Keep working at your studies, boy, and we'll just see. The Crown always has need for brave men.
I hope I can be that someday.
Sergeant Luxo! Sergeant Luxo!
Look, Sergeant Luxo, it's that girl from the village.
Yes, young Abigail Pearson, the governor's daughter.
Sergeant Luxo, I'm so glad I found you. I ran all the way from the village.
Sit down, child. You'll give yourself a heat stroke in this weather. It's nearly 50 degrees.
Oh, but I had to run. It's Father.
The governor's in peril?
Yes. We were hiking along the South Branch Trail, looking for wild blueberries when who should appear from behind the trees but that villain, Red Jones.
So Jones is back in the territory.
Yes. My father was very brave, but Jones got the jump on us and made away with my diamond stick pin. And most importantly, Father's watch.
Jiminy Christmas! Isn't that the watch your father received as a gift from the head of Hudson's Bay Company?
The very same. It's solid gold and worth a fortune.
Quick, Miss Abigail. Which direction was Jones heading?
Why, west, I believe.
Just as I suspected. He's going to try and make it over the mountains and into the land where his lawless behavior will be condoned.
You mean?
Yes. Jones is undoubtedly headed to the United States.
No! It can't be.
It's almost certain. If I can't stop Red Jones, he'll get over the pass and into Alaska and out of my jurisdiction. And your father's watch will be gone forever.
No!
Fear not, fair Abigail, for a Mountie always gets his man. Prince! Ready to go, boy?
Can I come, Sergeant Luxo?
I'm afraid not, Jimmy. Red Jones is an unsavory character, and there's almost certain to be trouble when we meet up. Perhaps even gunplay.
Oh, no.
Please, can I go? I can be a big help, Sergeant Luxo. I can carry water and hand you bullets, and my aim with a slingshot is legendary.
Jones won't be firing rocks from any slingshot, Jimmy. I can't risk it.
Do not underestimate the humble sling, Sergeant Luxo. The scriptures tell us of its power in the story of David and Goliath.
Yeah.
Far be it from me to disagree with Scripture, Jimmy. A Red Jones is no Goliath. He's a low-down, dastardly scoundrel who won't hesitate to kidnap you, or even worse, if it serves his needs. It's too dangerous, son. You have to stay here.
Aww.
There's not a moment to lose. I hereby declare that Red Jones shall be brought to justice, or my name isn't Sergeant Luxo of the Yukon. Mush, Prince! Mush for crown and country!
It's amazing how noble a man Sergeant Luxo is.
And good at repairing sleds, too.
Whatever do you mean, Jimmy?
I've never seen a sled go that fast without snow before.
I must go and inform my father. He'll want to know Sergeant Luxo is on the case.
Yeah, Sergeant Luxo's on the case. And Jimmy is too.
We'll be back to our story in just a moment. But first, I'll bet all our young listeners want to know how Sergeant Luxo keeps up enough pep to pursue justice all over the frozen north. Sergeant?
Thank you. Of course, as regular listeners of our stories know, there's nothing better to keeping your pep up during the cold northern winters than Browno brand chocolate beverage. Just have your mother put 2 tablespoons of Browno in a glass of milk, stir, and you have instant chocolate milkshake. Or heat the milk on your radiator oil burner for instant cocoa that can't be beat.
That's right, Sergeant. Good people who care about justice choose Browno brand chocolate beverage 2-to-1 over the other leading brand. It's delicious, it's nutritious, it's Browno.
When you want a treat that can't be beat, have the cocoa milk in the colder the
When last we left our story, Sergeant Luxo was speeding along a grassy path, his trusty lead dog Prince leading the way. After an hour or more of hard running, they came upon the foothills of the border mountains between the Canadian Yukon and the United States territory of Alaska.
Whoa, Prince, whoa. Good dog. Good husky. Well, there it is, Prince. Yukon Pass and the trail into Alaska. If we don't catch up with him here, we won't catch him at all. Yes, I know. A Mountie always gets his man. I was just speaking metaphorically. Come along, boy, and be careful. Jones could be hiding behind any of these towering fir trees. You're right. He could be behind a rock, too. Blast this dry grass. It's impossible to go anywhere silently. Oh, don't worry, boy. We have right on our side, and Jones wouldn't dare face me in a fair fight. I've bested him twice already, and like all criminals, he's a coward at heart. That was close. Thanks, boy. No, it came from up in those trees.
That's you, Luxo?
You know it is, Jones. Be a good fellow and come down and talk.
And spend a night in your jail. Banana oil, I say.
Him and his filthy American mouth. Prince, do you think you can sneak around his flank? Good. I'll keep him busy while you execute that maneuver. Remember, we want him alive. I know, but we're civilized men, here to bring justice to this frontier, not revenge. All right then, move out. I'll provide covering fire. Take this, Jones!
Blast and perdition, are you shooting back?
Why don't you come down and we'll talk about it?
You'd better not be providing covering fire for that dog of yours, Luxo.
Wouldn't you like to know? You're outnumbered, Jones. Your only option is to come along peacefully. What about it? Jones? Jones, answer me in the name of the crown. What, Prince, what is it, boy? What's wrong? But you were supposed to be executing a flanking maneuver. What happened?
I'll tell you what happened.
Jones!
That's right. And I have a little friend of yours here with me.
Jimmy!
I'm so sorry, Sergeant Luxo.
Little scam caught up with me before you did, Luxo. All's the worse for him.
I told you to stay home, Jimmy.
I'm sorry. I thought he could get a jump on him.
Almost did, too. Had me dead to rights with a slingshot before I pulled my gun.
Jimmy!
I'm sorry. I just wanted to prove that I've got what it takes to be a Mountie.
Let him go, Jones. You have theft and assaulting a Crown officer on your rap sheet. You don't want kidnapping, too.
I haven't been convicted of anything yet, Luxo. If you want to see this little fella alive again, you'll holster that gun and keep that dog of yours back.
You'll never get away with this.
I'm heading up into the pass into Alaska, Luxo. If you're a good little Mountie and let me be, you just might see the scamp again. Otherwise...
You fiend!
I'm sorry, Sergeant Luxo.
Be brave, Jimmy. He won't hurt you if you do what he says.
That's right, Jimmy. Just do what I say and you might live through this.
Stand down, Prince. Stand down. Let them go. We can't guarantee Jimmy's safety right now, and besides, I have a plan.
Will Red Jones get away with Jimmy into the lawless territory of Alaska? Will Jimmy survive to gradually regain Sergeant Luxo's trust? And most of all, what is Sergeant Luxo's surely brilliant plan to capture Red Jones, recover the governor's watch, and keep Jimmy safe? Tune in tomorrow to hear the next exciting chapter in
Sergeant Luxo of the Yukon!
Whew. That was early radio.
It was the most powerful medium in the country. As the 30s turned into the 40s, and the country did in fact go to war, radio was right there to provide news and information. And the stories are there too. But as the years went by, things were starting to change.
There was a new invention coming, an invention that would change everything.
And that invention, of course, was...
Yep, television.
Just like radio, only with pictures.
And as more and more people began watching television, more and more of the old radio shows started to fade away.
By the time the 1940s turned into the 1950s, radio was more or less a music box, with very few stories left on the air.
A lot of great radio shows like The Shadow, Lights Out, and Inner Sanctum all tried to become television shows, but they never seemed to last very long.
Then, on September 30th, 1962, the program Suspense signed off CBS for the final time. The golden age of radio was over.
For decades, there wasn't a lot of stories on the air. Every now and again, radio people would try a new show, but things had just changed too much.
But even though it had been pushed out of the limelight by television, radio drama, as the stories came to be called, never quite faded away.
There's the CBS Radio Mystery Theater and Adventures in Odyssey, and even, in 1980, a radio adaptation of Star Wars on NPR.
Then, in 1997, something wonderful happened. The Sci-Fi Channel, a cable television network, decided to produce some stories for this new thing called website. And a new age of radio drama, now called audio theater, was born. Instead of on the air, it was online.
Before long, groups from all over the globe propped up and started creating new audio theater stories and posting them on the internet.
In 2005, a new internet thingamajig called a podcast was invented that allowed people to subscribe to audio stories that would automatically come to their phones or portable listening devices.
Today, over 1 million people a month download audio theater stories via podcast, and even more listen on websites every day. This has led to a huge rise in people making their own stories.
Community theaters, schools, libraries, it seems everyone's trying audio theater.
Get a few microphones, a computer, some sound effects props, and you can tell any kind of story you want.
Which is just what we want to do today.
Okay, your turn. We have brought with us, and we've done this all over the Iron Range and the North Shore, and kids, especially kids, but adults some too, have loved it. We have, of course, a lot of sound effects, and we have some pages from the show we just did, Sergeant Luxo of the Yukon. Not the whole thing, just about 4 pages worth. So the best part, yes, the gunfight, right? Yeah, the gunfight's in
right after the Brano cut off.
So I'm looking for some volunteers who might want to come up and play Sergeant Luxo, or the Dog Prince, that's a lot of fun, or Jimmy. And if you don't wish to read, that's absolutely fine, because we have need of sound effects as well. But if nothing else, please, everyone who would, young or young at heart, please stand up and come up and say hello, check out our sound effects table, and we'll see if we can't get another little bit of Luxo produced right here in Grand Marais. That's kind of the end of our formal presentation, so please come up, chat with us, and we'll see if we can't get a show going. If someone would like to read and play on the microphones.
Come on.
There we go.
Come on.
All right. Are we ready to go? Well, ladies and gentlemen, we found some volunteers after all. And I think we're going to go from the top of this particular thing, which is a music cue. And then Luxo, you'll come right in after the music is out. I'll give you, these are the most basic radio sound effects hand signals from the director. That's standby. Everyone standby. And whoever goes, I will point at you, and that's cue. And of course, everything but the act, no one but the actors talks. So I have to do this all like that. But we start, of course, with the big music intro.
Come along, boy, and be careful. Jones could be hiding behind any of these towering fir trees. Well, you're right. He could be behind a rock, too. Oh, blast this dry grass. It's impossible to go anywhere silently. Oh, don't worry, boy. We have right on our side. And Jones wouldn't dare face me in a fair fight. I've bested him twice already. And like all criminals, he's a coward at heart. That was close. Thanks, boy. It came from behind those trees.
That you, Lexo? That you, Lexo?
You know it is, Jones. Be a good fellow and come down and talk.
And spend the night in your jail? That I say.
Oh, him and his filthy American mouth. Prince, do you think you can sneak around his flank? Good. I'll keep him busy while you execute that maneuver. And remember, we want him alive. I know, but we're civilized men here to bring justice to this frontier, not revenge. All right then. Move out and I'll provide covering fire. Take this, Jones!
Blast in person. Precision. Are you shooting back?
Well, why don't you come down and we'll talk about it?
You'd better be providing covering by fire for that dog of yours, Lexo.
Wouldn't you like to know? You're outnumbered, Jones. Your only option is to come along peacefully. What about it? Jones? Jones, answer me in the name of the crown. What? Prince? What is it, boy? What's wrong? But you were supposed to be executing a flanking maneuver. What's wrong?
I'll tell you what's wrong.
Jones!
That's right. And I'll have a title. I mean, a little. Hello, friend.
Jimmy!
I'm so sorry, Sergeant Luxo.
Alaska taught up with me before you did, Luxo. All's the worse for him.
I told you to stay at home, Jimmy.
I'm sorry. I thought I could get the jump on him.
I almost did too. Had me dead to the rights with a silent before I pulled my gun.
Jimmy!
I'm sorry. I just wanted to prove that I've got what it takes to be a Mountie.
Let him go, Jones. You've got theft and assaulting a crown officer on your rap sheet. You don't want kidnapping, too.
I haven't been convincing anything yet, Luxo. And if you want to see this little fella alive again, you'll lasso that gun and keep that dog of yours back.
You'll never get away with this.
You're heading up to the past. I'm heading up into the past into Alaska, Lexo. If you're a good little Mountie and get me be, you must see this scamp again. Otherwise.
You fiend!
I'm sorry, Sergeant Luxo.
Be brave, Jimmy. He won't hurt you if you do what he says.
That's right, Jimmy. Woo, woo. Just do what I say, and you might live through this.
Stand down, Prince. Stand down. Let them go. We can't guarantee Jimmy's safety right now. And besides, I have a plan.
All right.